big time above 30,000 US dollars and flip it to long-term support. There is one thing that is happening in crypto that is bigger than anything that you can think of. And it has the potential to change crypto forever. I want you to close your eyes right now and think of the biggest thing you can think of. You got it? Now double it. Right now the price of Bitcoin is in a very interesting place as we continue for the past week now to stay above, concretely today, the 7th day, 30,000 US dollars. It's been a week that we've been bouncing, as you can see, on this level. But are we about to dip our tip below that? Or are we about to bust up to a much bigger level? Now, more importantly than all of this, in my opinion, is two things that we're going to be jumping into right now. So first of all, the Fed. Powell saying today that he does not see America getting back to 2% inflation this year or even in 2024 next year. Powell saying that Fed has a long way to go. It's a long way from being confident that inflation is on its way to 2%, and the Fed will be restrictive as long as it needs to be. I think a lot of you already are aware of that. I think we all have kind of accepted that. But my point with this, of talking about this, is that I don't think it really matters that much. Over the past month, we've seen Bitcoin decouple from the stock market in the wrong way and now the right way. For a while, the stock market was going up, Bitcoin was going down, and now the stock market was going down a little bit and it's not really doing too much, and Bitcoin went up a lot. And so there is some sort of decoupling. And ultimately, long term, I think there will be much more decoupling. Ultimately, I think Bitcoin will have to decouple from the stock market in some sense for it to achieve what it was meant to do, right? I think everyone agrees with that. Everyone knows that. I think the only debate is when it will decouple from the stock market. And I think it'll happen sooner than a lot of people potentially think. But here's what's more important here. So Bloomberg senior ETF analyst Eric Balchunas is talking about the approval of a Bitcoin spot ETF actually being at around 50%. And here's why. So Grayscale is looking more and more likely to win their case against the SEC. Now, why would this increase the chances of a Bitcoin ETF or even a different Bitcoin ETF, not even the Grayscale one, from getting approved? It's because Elliot Stein, a senior litigation analyst for Bloomberg, talked about an observation he saw about how the chances of Grayscale winning their lawsuit increased up to about like 70% in his opinion because of a specific thing that happened. Grayscale has a 70% chance of winning its lawsuit against the SEC over the company's bid to convert the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust into an ETF. The odds increased about 30% from 40 to 70% after oral arguments where all three judges on the panel appeared to side with Grayscale based on the lines of questioning. The SEC and Chair Gary Gensler may be bracing for a loss in that lawsuit and looking to preemptively soften it by making it meaningless by approving a spot ETF application before or around the same time as a court decision. Specifically, maybe not Grayscale's ETF, but by approving a different ETF from a TradFi firm, like all of these Bitcoin spot ETFs we've seen flood in over the past 2 weeks, whether it's Fidelity or like Citadel or BlackRock. If they approve one of those, then it makes this lawsuit a little less meaningful because the lawsuit is about getting a Bitcoin spot ETF, specifically from Grayscale's trust being converted into a Bitcoin spot ETF under Grayscale. So what I think is important about that is this, if that's actually true, that's actually happening, and if we are about to actually get a Bitcoin spot ETF approval for the first time in the US, it's because my opinion, so I've heard about, I've been following the news. I personally didn't, I thought the news, the hype of all these filings is great, but if I would ask myself deep down, do I think we're getting a spot ETF within the next couple of months for sure? I would say that my opinion is I don't think we would, right? I don't think we will, but if we actually do get a Bitcoin spot ETF approval, the price of Bitcoin has the chance to go much bigger, much higher, much, straight up, more so than we've ever seen Bitcoin do. The crazy thing is here, we literally have about $500 billion of market cap of Bitcoin. Not even, the entire cryptocurrency market space is about $1 trillion, a little bit. At its height, it was around like $3 trillion, is the most it was ever valued at, which is nothing. A drop in the bucket to these institutions that are filing ETFs. For pizza's sake, BlackRock itself is worth about 9 or 10 trillion, whereas Bitcoin is still worth, 500 billion, 600 billion? if even a fraction of a percent of money from these institutions would flow into Bitcoin, the price would literally do this, right? The great bust. That's why I ask you guys, do you believe in the great bust? Because it's absolutely not guaranteed that that this is going to happen. Absolutely not. I'm not saying that it is. I think there's still a lot of things that need to go right for it to happen. But the chances of Bitcoin doing something like this, if we get Bitcoin spot ETF approvals, is not guaranteed, but pretty close in my opinion. I think it would be absolutely bananas for the price. And as time goes on, especially over the past couple of weeks, it looks as though the SEC obviously has overstepped, and it looks as though there are so many bullish things that can come out of this turmoil, this basically aggression and malevolent behavior from the SEC against Bitcoin that is truly, setting up to be potentially one of the biggest trades of a lifetime. In fact, not even one of. Literally, this is setting up to be the biggest trade of a lifetime. And I keep seeing this rocket ship that somebody commented in response to this tweet, and that's exactly how it feels, right? If this actually happens. Now, is there going to be manipulation? Is there going to be dumps? Absolutely, right? There always is. In fact, Bitcoin has been manipulated from the beginning. All markets are manipulated. So it's always weird to me when people will bring up manipulation to try to further a point about why Bitcoin should or shouldn't do something. It's always been manipulated. But everything is manipulated. Every market is manipulated. But if we look at Bitcoin's chart, I'm surprised we still have been holding so resiliently above 30,000. If we dip a little bit below that, I talked about in the last video, these levels of pullback levels of where I think I think it would be very smart for me to add more to long positions. Again, even if we pull back to some of these levels that we've been talking about over and over, everyone kind of seems to agree on these pullback levels. So that makes me question it a little more, like, okay, well, if everyone believes this is actually true, then maybe it isn't. But maybe we'll just shoot up to 35,000, where 35,000 is a big level of resistance, and 35,000 I think is the next pit stop for Bitcoin. Actually, if you pull out the fib from the previous bear to bull market here, the next big level, here we are right now about 30, 35, or 36-ish, all the way up to even about 37,000 is where I think the next big bust would land us. If we have a full-on breakout continued here, then 36, let's go right in the middle. 36 is a good target to look for in a breakout event like that. But overall, I mean, we still have about half of the year of 2023 left. I think my opinion on this is that I think that towards the end of this year, specifically like November, December, I think there's a distinct possibility if things go half as good as I think they might be going. Specifically, I think that's changed over the last 2 weeks because there's been so much positive news and support in crypto. But if things can go even half as good, like half as good as the best case scenario, Bitcoin being above 50,000 even at this point becomes realistic. And some people are hearing that, thinking that sounds crazy. Some people are hearing me say that and thinking, oh, that's still very low. Some people are saying, it's still possible we break all-time highs this year. I don't think we're going to be breaking all-time highs this year, even in I think it would have to be a best case scenario. I think like a bunch of ETFs would have to be approved, spot ETFs. I think a bunch of positive developments would happen. Actually, I guess, if the SEC lost all of their lawsuits, if they lose against Ripple, if they lose against Coinbase, Binance, which Coinbase and Binance are not going to be settled this year, but if they lose against like Ripple this year, and if they get some decisions made against them, specifically with this Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, Bitcoin ETF filing, if that would go the way of Grayscale and the SEC would lose, it becomes possible that Bitcoin can hit all-time highs, and if ETFs get approved. But I'm not going to make that prediction because so many things have to go right for that to happen that it would be, nobody can know that at this point, right? We need to wait to see how things play out. But ultimately, again, this holding 30K is amazing. Even holding anywhere above 28K is amazing. So Bitcoin's doing really well. And the chances for further pumpiness in just the next 6 months is still very high. And take advantage of massive sign-up and deposit bonuses with Femex and BitGet below. If you're interested in trading, get massive trading and sign-up bonuses. Specifically, earn free XPT if you sign up with my link to Femex below. Without any further ado, that's it for me.